Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Eltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Check my work out there on the site, and you can also check out my co-host's work as well from the Rivals Cincinnati coverage site, the Front Office News. It's Neil Meyer taking you into a spring showcase football weekend for the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have a few spring practices left, and they got the spring showcase, formerly known as the spring game. There won't be much real live scorekeeping going on during the action on Saturday. And honestly, for fans watch this right now, you probably won't see many of the big name stars doing much on Saturday, considering all of the reps that are needed for the young guys in this kind of format. We'll get to that to close the show, though, and we start the show with the latest look at the transfer portal. There is now, I believe, 8 Bearcats from the basketball team in the portal after Connor Hickman entered on Thursday. We'll discuss that and get to some of the latest kind of transfer portal entry news. Haven't had any new additions outside of Kirk Harisa and Sincere Harris since our last show, but some news and names of the like that we will get to in terms of front court players that they're eyeing for the roster, which is a clean slate in the hands of Corey Evans, who did a couple of media appearances this week, including on the Ryen Russillo Podcast. Neil Meyer and I will discuss those comments from Corey as he makes the shift from a scout with the Oklahoma City Thunder to the general manager of Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. All that coming up on Bearcat Blitz across the Believe Network right here. Take a quick break, and we'll get to the show after these messages. Neil, the Bearcats have had a bevy of players enter the transfer portal, and most recently, it was Connor Hickman announcing his entry. Jizzle James announced that he is going to be returning this season, and then we also had Cincinnati Bearcats forward Dylan Mitchell entering on Tuesday afternoon, later on Tuesday. Going into things, and I think we were recording when Arrington Page went into the portal on Tuesday. So, as of the last recording we did, Neil, Hickman, Jizzle James returning, Hickman leaving most likely, and Dylan Mitchell leaving most likely, and notably has a Big East visit lined up this weekend at the up and coming St. John's outfit led by Rick Pitino.
Yeah, Russ, and I know we talk about guys exiting the portal. I mean, you see Dylan Mitchell go, that's a huge loss for Cincinnati. I know you and I kind of talked about how big of an impact player he was for Cincinnati this past season, and his role could have been even more important heading into the 2025-2026 season. But instead, he hops in the transfer portal and is slated to visit St. John's this upcoming weekend starting today, which St. John's was also heavily involved during this time last year when Mitchell was in the portal. So a Big East visit in the works for Dylan Mitchell. Now, the Connor Hickman entering the transfer portal news, Russ, I think you and I kind of hinted at it earlier in the week, but it was kind of something that you didn't really know what could happen, especially with the addition of Kirk Harisa alongside Day Thomas. Jizzle James announces his return, so you have your 3 guards there. However, Connor Hickman entering the portal kind of gives solidarity that he might be getting another extra year of eligibility. But it was going to be interesting to see what kind of role would he have if he did elect to stay at Cincinnati in a now extremely crowded backcourt with the addition of Kirk Harisa, Sincere Harris, Jizzle James, Day Thomas, and then you bring in Keyshawn Tillery as well. Those are your 5 guards right there for Cincinnati. But Hickman enters the portal, and the biggest news of the week, Russ, was obviously we've talked about it, we've hinted at it for weeks and weeks now, Jizzle James returning for Cincinnati. There was all this expectations and rumors that people were putting on social media, which I don't know where they got the information from, that they were claiming Jizzle James is going to enter the portal. That was never once an option for Jizzle James, and we're going to hear that probably again from himself throughout this season because we asked him about it last year, and he said it was never an option. It never was a thought that ran through my mind to leave Cincinnati. And I mean, you guys saw the social media post. The caption said, "I ain't hiding," quote unquote. So overall, Jizzle James is back for Cincinnati. He's going to be a big-time player. 14 points per game for Cincinnati, could take an even bigger role in year 3. It's going to be interesting to see how does he kind of play alongside Sincere Harris, Kirk Carissa, Dede Thomas as well, Keyshawn Tillery. It's going to be interesting to see, does Jizzle James stay at the 1, or does he slide back into the 2 role and play more off ball, which is where he really excelled at in the back half of the season. So overall, a lot of big news for Cincinnati this week.
And now, Neil, we assess the roster as it is today. Taking a look at the roster as we sit here now, the front court is thin, to say the least. There really isn't a front court right now. It's Tyler McKinley and Halvin Zealot. And then you have Sincere Harris and Shauna Bayev as the kind of swing pieces between the backcourt and the front court at the small forward, power forward positions there. Kirk Carissa, Keyshawn Tillery, Jizzle James, Dede Thomas, your guards as of this writing. Have not seen an official announcement from Dede yet that he is returning. I would be shocked if he entered the portal at this point. We're already a week plus past when guys were starting to make their decisions, starting to have their conversations and all that good stuff. So we're further and further along into that. I would be very shocked if he ended up in the portal, but it's college athletics in 2025. Nothing can supremely floor you these days. Neil, they need to get a front court player. They need to get after a guy in the front court, and they are obviously trying to do that right now. When you look at a player in town as we speak, making a visit during this weekend, is George Mason forward Jalen Haynes. 1 year of eligibility left, veteran player at 6'8", 250 pounds, holds one more season of eligibility, like I mentioned, after posting 14 points and 6.9 rebounds per game on 55.4% shooting from the floor this past season, 14.1 points, I should say. 60.4% free throw mark, Neil. He went 3 of 17 from deep this past season. So Jalen Haynes is not going to bring anything in terms of a stretch 5 opportunity to the floor this coming season, but he's a huge body that has great interior scoring ability, has been efficient as an interior scorer at that, and could be that beef in the middle that Cincinnati has supremely lacked over the past couple of years.
It's going to be interesting too, Russ, because you look down at what this roster could be, right? Jalen Haynes, a guy in town for his visit this weekend. It's a big time move for Cincinnati to get a talent like that in for the transfer portal, especially coming from a smaller school in George Mason, where he averaged 14.7 rebounds on 56% field goal shooting per se, but 6'8", 260 pounds. It would be interesting to see if they were able to land Jalen Haynes. What does Mike Rayfeld and this staff do with him this offseason? I know we saw it in years past where they really transformed the bodies of guys like Jamil Reynolds, who was also a similar stature when he came in to Cincinnati. How do they use him? But this is a big time player in the transfer portal, right? I know you look down, Russ, I believe he had 18-7 versus Duke this past year, and Duke was a Final Four team. So overall, there is a lot to like about it. And Cincinnati has no front court, like you mentioned, outside of Tyler McKinley and Halvin Zealot right now. So overall, this is the first big time visit that we are slated to hear from since the transfer portal opened up. Obviously, things will probably start to get moving a little bit sooner and more quickly now that the dead period is over. But overall, I think this could be a big time addition for Cincinnati if they are able to land it this weekend with Jalen Haynes.
But it would be, and a guy who is kind of the maestro of the moment right now, Neil, is Corey Evans. Other kind of big names that we got to touch on here before we get to Evans' interview on the Ryen Russillo podcast. Anything else really stick out to you, Neil, in terms of guys that Cincinnati has shown interest in thus far? Ante Brozovic, I think I got his name right. I might have just completely screwed it up. Charleston center. Neil, I didn't bring him up first because he's one of the one of the players in the highest demand of the entire transfer portal right now. He is one of the best scoring centers in the entire country. Very talented big man at 6. What is he at? 6'10" right now. Yeah, 6'10". 1 season of eligibility left. Shot 54.4% from the floor at College of Charleston last year. 18.4 points per game. 8.1 rebounds. 2.8 assists. I mean, Neil, this guy is going to command big money in the portal for his final season in college basketball. We'll see if Cincinnati can make it happen. But when you look at the list here, Georgetown, Indiana, Kansas State, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Clemson, Baylor. There's a lot of big fish going after Ante.
Yeah, most certainly. And I mean, that's the new era of college athletics, right? In the transfer portal. You're going to see a lot of money thrown at these big time players, especially front court players. And for Cincinnati's sake, Russ, it's kind of safe to say they now have majority of their NIL cap to spend. Aziz Bandaogo got a decent chunk last year. Dylan Mitchell got a good chunk last year. They are now slated with the roster overhaul.
And how does that work with the international players, Neil? Do you know? Like, how did Aziz get NIL if he's a Senegalese native?
It's a great question. It really is. And there's a lot of gray areas with NIL too. I know speaking of it,
the letter of the law says that the NIL cannot be given out to international players. I'm almost positive that's what it says.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's what it says. But you know that these athletes are getting paid regardless. There's so many loopholes and gray areas in this situation. But on top of it, look at where Cincinnati was in recent years. You talk about Aziz Bandaogo potentially getting NIL. Simas Lukosius, another international player, potentially getting NIL. I'm sure the money was coming in somewhere for those two guys. And then on top of it, you have Dylan Mitchell, who had a good chunk last year. You had Connor Hickman, who they brought in from Bradley. Sure, he was getting some. CJ Frederick's gone. Even though those two guys probably didn't get as much compared to a Dan Skillings or a Dylan Mitchell, Cincinnati's NIL allotment now is wide open, right? And I mean, we've heard it on podcasts where Travis and Jason Kelsey have joked like, hey, we've helped pay so-and-so's NIL process. I mean, when you have big-time donors who help out in terms of NIL, it's great to see, but it's going to be interesting to see how does Cincinnati now use the resources they had last year and put it into this year. It's a good trending topic into our next segment, Russ, is Corey Evans even talked about it on the Ryen Russillo podcast. So we can lead into it with that, and we can break it down a little bit more about what Cincinnati GM Corey Evans had to say on the NIL topic and making that transition from NBA to now college level and how everything is a different mindset and a different landscape.
Yeah, let's do that after this break on Bearcat Blitz. Corey Evans, the new general manager of the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball program, appeared on the Ryen Russillo podcast this week after his time with the Oklahoma City Thunder and laid out kind of the mantra that Cincinnati is looking for here, Neil, in the players they're bringing in. Rundown looks like this: processing, shooting, intelligence, good human being,
versatility,
and processing. Those were the key factors that Corey Evans laid out in his conversation with Ryen Russillo this week. Makes a lot of sense, Neil, and we'll see if they can fulfill as many of those pillars as possible over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about that too, obviously you look at the job that OKC has done in the recent years. I mean, he even discussed the trade that brought him Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and how they gave up 4 first-round picks for Paul George, that whole deal in itself, right? He walks us through that deal. And it's great to hear his kind of mindset on. He goes, at the time, we didn't know what it could have played out to be. And now look what happened, right? OKC is one of the best up-and-coming youngest teams in the NBA. But on top of it, what he had to say, he goes, you have to really kind of sit down and get to know somebody. And he goes, relationships are all that, right? He mentions you have to sit down, you have to do your due diligence. He's like, going from the NBA mindset to where we are now in college athletics. When he was with OKC, Russ, he mentioned how he was trying to scout for 25, 26-year-olds, right? Coming for the NBA draft, he was like, okay, how do I see them now and how do I see them in 6 years compared to the prime of the basketball is how he referenced it at that 25, 26 age range. To now, you have to sit down and you have these 18 to 21-year-old, 22-year-old kids who you're sitting down, you're trying to think about, you're doing your due diligence on, you're doing your intel. He even mentioned it. He goes, we're going to go as far as looking into it, them as a person, their family life, their personal life, who they hang out with, all that kind of stuff. He goes, we want good people in everything we value. And he spoke a lot about Cincinnati, and he even mentioned how he wants Cincinnati to be back to what it used to be, but he wants them to create their own identity. And I thought that was pretty unique too, Russ. I don't know if you caught that aspect where he goes, Ryan asked him about how he would kind of bring it up to transfers. Hey, do you know about Cincinnati during this time? And he goes, we definitely bring it up, but we're playing in the Big 12 now. And we showed them that, but we want to create our new identity because he said it, Big 12 is different now in 2025 compared to what it might have been back in 2016, 2017, or even 2018, right? So it's a long way to go, but I'm very, very impressed. And for those who haven't listened to that podcast, I would highly, highly recommend taking, what was it, Russ, 25, 30 minutes of the show to sit down and actually listen to it.
Yeah, it was great stuff from Ryan, and he's all into the evaluation aspect of the game and all that. So I think that was the big reason he wanted to talk to Corey Evans, just see what the big difference is. And Neil, the biggest difference for Corey now that he told Ryan was shifting his mindset from how is this guy going to look in 3, 4, 5 years on an NBA team to
how can we win
how
now?
Is this guy going to look in the next 12 months? And it's a huge shift, but one that I think he's going to astutely be able to do. And I think the ingrained relationship between him and Wes Miller over the decade plus that they've known each other over the past 10 plus years is going to help them really work together. And he noted that he doesn't really look at Wes as his boss. They're kind of on the same team. They're partners together here. And he's trying to, in his own words, take away some of the BS from the coaches' plates and take on some of that and be able to turn some of that BS into gold for the Bearcats this coming fall. And Neil, I did a little bit more digging. NIL can be earned by NIL students, or NIL can be earned by international students if they have a certain visa. So like the most common visa for international students is an F1 visa, which you cannot earn a certain amount of money if you end up becoming employed on that. But they also have P1 visas and O1 visas or a green card, which are a little bit more expensive to obtain. So maybe those guys got those, and that's how they were able to get their NIL requirements met in that sense. Taking a quick break here, and we will preview the spring showcase. The Bearcats football team all in full action on Saturday afternoon in front of fans before another lead into baseball from the school in a big day for Cincinnati Bearcats athletics. All that coming up on the next segment. Neil, spring showcase ready to roll for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team. And talking with Coach Satterfield earlier this week, it's going to look a little bit different than some practices, I would imagine, but I don't think it's going to look a whole lot different from a practice. This is a veteran-laden team at this point. 3 years in, Scott Satterfield has ingrained his guys. They don't have like all the starters figured out, all that kind of stuff. No, not even close, for sure. But there are some names, like I would imagine, Neil, Brendan Sorsby. I would be shocked to see him out there for a large chunk of snaps. Dante Corleone, Joe Royer, who else? Jake Golday, Jack Dingle, some of these more veteran players that have been in the program a while. I don't expect to see them getting a ton of reps just because there's no need for it. There's no need to give these guys extra reps when you got so many other young guys that haven't had any game reps or any kind of pressure reps to take on. Scott Satterfield mentioned by name that Samaj Jones, backup quarterback, was going to get a lot of run in this game or in the showcase, so to speak. And other than that, Neil, it should just be pretty much a glorified practice. I wouldn't expect any hardcore scorekeeping or anything like that on Saturday, as another instance in college football where the spring game largely around the country is basically going away.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great talking point that you mentioned, noting that too, Russ, because the spring game is different, right? So you look at what might happen on Saturday with these younger guys getting different reps. Samaj Jones be one of those guys, the highly touted 4-star quarterback. We saw a little bit of it last season in the spring game, and he actually flashed in the spring game. It's going to be interesting to see.
And I think Samaj, Neil, will play a decent chunk of snaps this fall. I think they're going to have some packages ready for him, especially what did they have so much of an issue with last year? Those short yardage, short red zone areas. Mm-hmm. He can be a guy, Neil, that I think can keep the chains moving or keep you moving towards the end zone a little bit more consistently in those spots with how well he runs the football. He's a better runner than Brendan Sorsby, and that's saying something given how good a runner Brendan Sorsby is.
Yeah, and that's testament to Nico Palazetti and his staff, right? I mean, you look at Samaj Jones, Russ. If you didn't watch his tape, I don't think you would recognize, oh, he's a quarterback, right? You look down and you're probably thinking he's a bigger style running back or built like a linebacker, even though he's not. But he is a big time freak athlete. He's got a lot of muscle on him, and he can lower his shoulder and go after you in the short run game as well. So overall, I'm excited. I'm excited for Saturday. I know it's going to be a good time to be out there. We've talked about some names to keep an eye on, but like you said, I don't think we see much of the big time stars like Brendan Sorsby, Dante Corleone, Jake Golday. I expect them to get a little bit of run, but I don't think we see them get much run out there.
Maybe some new transfer stars get to see more of them. I would expect Matthew McDoom to get a decent amount of snaps to keep integrating him here. Cyrus Allen, Neil. I don't know if you saw the video from Dan Horde yesterday, but he caught a dime ball from Brendan Sorsby. Great catch from Cyrus Allen. He's going to be a fun player, I think, for Bearcats fans to see. Jeff Caldwell, who we've talked about a few times over the past month, he's going to be able to get in front of fans for the first time. So the transfers, I think, are the big ticket for people to go check out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, looking at it right now, the weather might not be perfect. It might be a little overcast and a little chilly, but still a good opportunity to get out there. And Russ, it's even worth noting too, like this is an all-day event
with the baseball game against, are they playing Arizona State, I believe?
Arizona, yep. So it's an all-day event. You have the AD, John Cunningham, talking at about 10 in the morning to some fans in a Q&A. Then you have open practice. Then you have right across the lawn, you have UC Jordan Bishel taking on Arizona, and then you have the Bearcats night at the ballpark downtown when the Reds play. So overall, it's a busy day and it's an all-day activity. So it's going to be interesting to see. But man, I'm excited to see what they put on at the Gridiron. If I remember right, too, last year, Russ, this spring game went about 120 plays maybe. It took every bit of the full 2 hours, and I would expect to see the same again on Saturday.
Yeah, they're not going to be wasting any time. Going to be a lot of reps, a lot more team reps on Saturday, I would imagine, than during the normal 15 practice cycles that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks. Been a lot of fun checking out the football team. I'm pretty bullish on what I've seen so far, Neil. They seem together. They seem amped. There haven't been any major injuries that I can note of right now. Nobody's gone down in practice during play. They've done a good job of keeping each other healthy, and the vibes seem to be really high in terms of team chemistry. Can they execute, though, in those key moments, and especially can they execute on special teams? I'm looking out for that tomorrow. How does Max Fletcher punt that ball? How does Steven Rusnak kick that ball? And who is the first few guys, Neil, that we see go out there for special teams kind of sessions during the game on Saturday? The showcase on Saturday is going to be a key thing to see. They haven't worked much on kickoff this spring, Neil. They've been mostly focusing on punt. So I wouldn't imagine we see a ton of kickoff, if any kickoff on Saturday, mostly just looking at punt reps for the team. And then Scott Satterfield said they'll work in the kickoff practice throughout fall camp and beyond. Wanted to focus on the punting first, get that nailed in, and then get to the kickoff game. I'm Russ Eltman. Should be a lot of fun at Nippert Stadium and beyond on Saturday. Enjoy the spring showcase, everybody. This has been Bearcat Blitz, presented by Bet Online on the Believe Network.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a three.